Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, as always, Neil Gibb. And today, you know we love a manufactured growth strategy here on the podcast. And today we've got one of Perth's best property flippers. It's Mr. Graham Whitfield. Graham, welcome to the podcast, mate.
G'day, Neil. Thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to talking about flipping and renovating and, all the rest of it.
Yes, mate, I love it. Let's, before we get into it, though, the podcast nearly didn't happen today, mate, because you just moved house, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we booked it in before Christmas, and my life's been pretty hectic because I've just moved house. So, moved down south. Obviously, people listening in the Margaret River region. So I've just been yelling up about 3 hours south of Perth. And yeah, I knew it was in the diary, and pretty much all these podcasts that you do are normally over Zoom. So I just assumed it was Zoom because all the rest are. And then I just messaged Heidi before and said, "Hey, just confirming it's on today because we haven't discussed this." And then she was just like, "Yeah, it was in the studio." I was like, "Oh, we better make it Zoom."
Yeah, I do like to do them in person, mate, because you always get that better connection. But look, this'll do. Maybe we'll do another one in the future.
For sure.
So, how did you get into property flipping, Graham? It hasn't always been your thing, has it?
No, it hasn't. I mean, I've always liked property. I've always loved property and always, I suppose, wanted to, do property sort of full time and that. But it's about having the skill set right, and if you don't know what you don't know. So for me, it sort of felt, happened by accident. I feel like I've told this story a million times, but essentially, like I had a property which was you would know it was in Coolbellup, suburb of Perth, and I'd actually had the property since I bought it in 2009. I think it was 2010 it was. Second property I bought, I was about 25 at the time. And I had the same tenants in there for 10 years. And then 2021, maybe 11 years, the house was just deteriorating and they weren't looking after it, and they'd trashed it. So I had to get them out basically, and I had to do something to it because selling it as was, or I wouldn't have been able to put tenants in it the way it was, sort of thing. So I had to do a renovation, and through doing that renovation and that experience and the before and after pictures and stuff like that, that was kind of like a light bulb moment. I'm like, okay, maybe you actually can flip houses for profit, and maybe I need to look at this more seriously.
Yeah, right. And what were you doing for work at the time?
So I was doing FIFO for about 2.5 years, but I'd previously done new home sales for 9 years. So property was always a passion, and sales and all that was always a passion for me. But I mean, obviously, again, being from Perth, you probably know the market before COVID got pretty bloody average in Perth, and I wasn't sort of earning the same money as I was for a long time selling homes. So I sort of decided, look, I'm not going to do new homes forever. And new homes was one of those jobs where, sales commission only, like you have to give your whole life to it to be able to, make good money. So there wasn't enough time to think about like what else I was going to do. So I ended up doing FIFO for a couple of years because, with the time being able to work away and then being home, I thought that would be a good opportunity for me to like really think about what I wanted to do next. So I was working FIFO when I did my first couple of renos and flips and stuff.
And that was in 2021 as well. So that was in the space of 3 years. You've come a long way, mate, haven't you?
Yeah, I've completed 27 projects, and I've got 2 more in the pipeline, which hopefully will settle February, so next month. Obviously I went full time pretty quickly, so I think I only did 2 projects before deciding that I was going to have a crack properly. And I could have done like most people I suppose do, they'll do the projects on the side. So, but if you're doing that, you might be able to do 2 or 3 a year. But obviously, you're working 9 to 5, and so I thought to myself, well, rather than doing 2 or 3, why don't I just like make this a career, and why don't I do 10 projects a year? Well, I actually said to myself at the start, I said my first year, I said I'll do 8, And I was like, I'll do 2 a quarter. I think I did 7 in my first year, and then I did 11 in my second year. So yeah, so I just had a red hot crack, and yeah, learned a lot, made a few mistakes, but yeah, learned a lot along the way.
Yeah. And did you get any coaching or mentors in the early days to help you? Because it's an art, isn't it? It's not just I'll
100%,
find a
yeah.
property and renovate it. There's a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of information and numbers that are required. So how did you learn all that?
Yeah, I've had coaches for everything. No, I've spent that much money on coaching the last few years. I did a program, um, spent about 5 grand on a course, and then spent another 25 grand on a coach. So I spent 30 grand up front to real and the coach who I had, she was an absolute jet. So like she'd done like 60 deals herself or something at the time. She was from
Name her?
Adelaide. No, a lady called Karen.
Karen.
Yeah, Karen Baldwin from she lives in Adelaide.
Yeah.
She was my first coach. I learned a shitload from her. Definitely bugged the hell out of her to get as much information as I could from her. But yeah, so I did that. I mean, but since then, like I've invested in a lot of other coaching programs as well,
Yeah.
development and business, and yeah, obviously
Never stops.
there's
Never
so much
stops,
stuff.
mate, does it?
Well, you don't learn this stuff like some like obviously I have a program now, so you know I'm sort of promoting programs, but you don't learn this shit from reading books, or you don't learn this stuff from university or TAFE or anything like that. You know, like if you want to make money and you want to make money through property or business and stuff like that, you literally need to learn from people that are doing it and good at it.
Yes.
And so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm putting myself in the listener's shoes right now. They'll be thinking, how did you go from 2 properties to doing 7 in your first year, but you'd left your job? How did you get bank loans? How did you service bank loans and stuff like that?
So I didn't have any bank loans and no serviceability, so I used
Awesome.
money partners 100%. Yeah. So I was fortunate that the program that I did taught me about money partners and JVs, and it taught me the legal side and all that sort of stuff. So I my very first deal, I was able to get money from a money partner who'd funded the whole project. And the second deal, so I actually landed 2 projects at the same time. It was actually the end of 2021. I landed both of them in the August 2021. And one of them was like I said, the money partner funded the whole purchase, and I funded the renovation, which was only about 40K. And then the second one was a JV, which again the JV funded everything. And yeah, so they were my first 2 deals. But those 2 deals made me realize, okay, shit, you actually don't need money to make money. Like if you find a good deal and there's profit in the deal, then other people will fund it for you. So that was a massive eye opener for me. And that was essentially my way to my way forward, essentially.
Yeah. I did a podcast on joint ventures and raising money previously. What comes first, the deal or the JV partner?
Definitely the deal. Yeah. Yeah, definitely the deal. Because the thing is, no one wants to know you if you haven't got a deal, right? Like I get students in my program now and they're like, "Oh, can I post for a money partner?" I'm like, no, like get the deal and then post. So I've got like a blanket rule, like because obviously you've got the Flipping House Australia Facebook group, which has 40,000 members in it, and there's a lot of money partners in there. So, and I've got a rule that only the students in the program can post in there. But I always say to them, like, they find money partners so easily because if the deal stacks up, they've got a good funding proposal and all the rest of it, the money partner will come. But if you go to a money partner and say, "Hey, look, I'm a property flipper. I've never done a deal in my life. I don't have a deal, but will you fund my project?" The money partner's going to be like, "Okay, well, fucking come talk to me when you got a deal." Like, do you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I'm like, and for me, it was always get the deal. And the thing is, once you get one deal and you get one money partner, and the deal is successful, the money partner then wants to be on your next deal. Do you know what I mean? And
Then
sometimes,
there's a switch, right? And the money partner comes before the deal.
well, because then they want to be a
Yeah.
part of it, and all of a sudden you've got in your phone book, you've got 10 money partners
Yeah.
because and another thing that I think is great as well, like let's say you need to borrow like 400K or whatever from a money partner, 500K, rather than getting it from one money partner, even if you can have 2 or 3 money partners on your first deal, all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 contacts, because those money partners, when they become more confident in you and that relationship grows, then they want to invest more money. So they might start to like, "Oh, I'll give you 100 or 200," but then after after they see their returns and stuff, after the second deal, third deal, that relationship grows and grows. There's more confidence in you, and therefore they're like, before you know it, they're funding the purchase and the renovation because, yeah, they believe in you.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Beautiful. So how do you find your areas that you want to flip in, and how do you find a deal? Have you done any owner joint ventures as well? Like where you
Seller
done
JVs,
seller
yeah, I have.
JVs?
I've only done the one seller JV, and it was actually like the third deal I ever did. So it was really, no, I think it was the fourth deal. It was really early on. It was a great deal. It was a property in Willagee that I did. So I did basically. The lady was a lawyer. She wasn't living in the house, but it was her kids were living in the house, and her daughter was a drug addict, and so she was almost forced out of her own home, and she was renting and like a little house in East Fremantle. Anyway, she got this real estate agent connected the two of us, and obviously told me the situation. Obviously, I had a look at the property. It was beat up, and she she didn't want to like. I suppose it was a good way of the win-win that we could get her kids out of the house essentially by me coming in and renovating it and all the rest of it. So, but long story short, all I had to do was fund the reno, and the renovation at the time was 60K. And obviously, I wasn't buying the property, so there was no purchase cost, there was no loan cost, there was no stamp duty, none of that because I never bought the property. My name never went on the title. So therefore, when we sold it, I mean, I walked away with about 95K on that deal. So, like I said, obviously invested 60K in the reno, got that back, and then made another 95K profit on top. So,
Beautiful. Beautiful. There'll be people listening to this thinking, well, how do you structure them deals? And
yeah,
how do you, once you've got deals as well, how do you propose these to investors?
100%. And that's right. It all comes down to like I think I said to you at the start about importance of like the legals and stuff like that. Like you need to know you need to have a good property solicitor, right? Because the property solicitor is the person who's going to put together the contracts and stuff like that. Um, you know, so when it comes to like, I call it my dream team. So, my accountant, my solicitor, my settlement agent, my building inspector, everyone that's, and plus all my trades and suppliers, like they all play like an equal part because without them, I can't do what I do sort of thing. So, I mean, my property solicitor, but, I use him for all sorts of things. Like I just ring him up and look, one of the deals I got under contract recently, the person or the sellers like they're in a bit of difficulty with the finance. So I'm as part of that win-win to be able to get the deal at a good price. I'm releasing 30K early, so which is obviously a little bit risky, right? When you haven't settled on the deal.
Yeah.
But obviously I rang the property solicitor and he's come back to me like with different clauses to put in the contract and all that sort of stuff, and obviously registering security on the title and stuff like that. So it's just important to have the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way that you've made that work as well, because a lot of people think you can just offer 28 days finance, 28 days settlements, and then you just wait. But there's all sorts of creative ways you can make this work. That was one of them. What other sort of
Yeah.
creative ways are you using, Graham?
Oh, I mean, look, depending on the situation, so you could definitely obviously release funds early. Like some people are stuck, right? So they might need to get somewhere. They might need airplane ticket. They might need, they might be wanting upgrade the car and travel around Australia, whatever. So they need money to be able to get from A to B. They might be looking at purchasing something else, or they might have somewhere to go, but they don't have somewhere straight away. So they might be able to rent the property back from you, or even rent it back at a discount. So they might buy the property really well, but then they might be able to might rent it back for 3 or 4 months at a cheap rate. What else is there? Long-term settlement, short-term settlement. Yeah, I can't really think off the top of my head at the moment, but there's
Access before
like you,
settlement.
you've just got to listen to what they want, and then depending on what they want, then then you make that happen essentially. So you've got to find out what their motivation is for selling, and depending on what their motivation is going to determine what you do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What sort of mistakes do you see rookie investors doing? So you've obviously had a lot of coaching, a lot of experience standing on the shoulders of the giants, but a lot of people jump in and,
Yeah.
it's the property development game. It can be riddled
Yeah,
with
yeah.
mistakes, can it? So what mistakes do you see people making?
Look, I always reckon that the big one is like emotion. Like people get too emotional with deals. So, and for two reasons, I say this to every single time when I get asked this question. and so almost feels like a routine answer, but it's so true, is that when people start, like firstly, they get really anxious about getting their first deal, or they really want to secure that first deal, and rather than doing the numbers and going, okay, this is all I can pay for this property, right? Because that's what my feasibility allows for me to be able to make the margin I need to make to be profitable. They'll go and overpay, and they know that they've overpaid, but just to get the deal. But then and they try and like, oh, but I'll spend less, and they never end up spending less on the reno, so they can't, So they just overpay. They get emotional. Same with like with your renovation and stuff like that. They'll they'll think that they're renovating their dream home rather than a house to flip for profit. So they overcapitalize. And I was obviously guilty of this in my first probably 5 or 6 deals as well, because you want to make everything perfect, but you don't have to make everything perfect. And you're not bringing a new house to the market. Like it's not a new house. It's a 30 or 40-year-old house. Now, again, it's dependent on the market, right? Like if you're, again, we're both from Perth. If you're renovating a house in Mosman Park, then obviously, yes, it's got to be 5-star, right? But if you're renovating a house in Quinana, like it doesn't have to be perfect. Like you don't have to put down new everything. Like you might renovate in the inside all new, but you don't have to go to the extent of making everything on the external like new, for example, like maybe, making the curb appeal nice, but you don't have to spend things on sheds and patios and there's a lot of money that people spend in renovating property and they're just not getting a return on it.
Yeah. And how do people understand the market? How do they find out what the market wants?
Yeah, so I sort of divide this up into two different sections in my program, and I call it market research and due diligence. So for me, market research is more at a suburb level. So, and I talk about being an area expert. So wherever you're going to renovate, or wherever's going to be your farming area, like if you've got one suburb, two, three, four, five, however many suburbs, you need to know that market as intimately as a real estate agent. So it means you also need to have a really good real estate agent on your team who can provide you with information. So, for example, myself, whenever I get a new deal, my agent will be able to give me the information that I need. Like, like a lot of the time, the data and stuff like that on RP data, it's not up to date, So, whereas she can tell me what happened last week, what she sold yesterday, sort of thing. So, that market research and our agents, obviously, if they're really good agents, that they can be another really good source of who the buyers are and what they want. Obviously, you should be going through home opens and inspecting and all that sort of stuff, but you need to know the suburb, the market, really, really well. I mean, take for example an area like Rockingham, right? It's not a great area, like as in it's not high end or anything like that. But you've got beachside houses in Rockingham, right? So the further you get back from the beach, obviously the cheaper it's going to get, right? So you need to know the value. If you're looking in an area like that and you're doing your numbers on a property, you need to realize that you know that house in Rockingham on, 2 streets back from the beach is considerably different from a house in Rockingham on the other side of the highway. Do you know what I mean? So they're things that's from a market perspective, suburb perspective. But then due diligence on the property is more okay, what's this house going to be worth when it's renovated, when I go to sell it? And when I'm doing when comparables for this one, I need to be comparing it to apples with apples. For example, if I'm use Rockingham again, if I've got a property in Rockingham and it's on, non-beach side of the highway, well, when I'm doing my comparables, I got to be looking at properties that are in that same pocket, not ones that are on the beach side, few streets from the back. So it's about knowing the market, the suburb as a whole and everything about that suburb, but it's also about knowing the property, 3x1, 4x2, like knowing, size of the floor plan, like, knowing what that house is worth and what it's going to be worth, renovated.
It's done. Obviously, both in Perth, both like the Perth market. I don't do deals anywhere else. I don't know about you, Graham, but what do you think of the Perth market currently and where do you think it's heading in the next 12 and 24 months?
It's a good question. Look, I think there's been a lot of growth in Perth. Like, I think that's fair. Like, I think the growth has, really started at that bottom end, and I feel like a lot of those suburbs that I've been flipping in over the last few years, the Quinanas and Rockinghams and those Armidale areas, I feel like they're done. Like, I don't feel like there's a lot of growth in there. speaking to my agent and stuff like that, and even like the last few deals I've done in those areas, like with buyers agents and stuff like that leaving the area, it's definitely plateaued. Like I think it's I'm not saying there's not going to be any crash or anything like that. We've still obviously got all the good fundamentals as far as population growth, and we've got still got low rental vacancy, and we've got number stock on market and all that sort of thing is low. So we've still got a lot of good signs. But as far as like what's happened is that price growth has really filled it up to the top now. So there's a lot more growth at that higher end of the market happening in that at the moment as well. But where do I see it? Like I don't like I think there'll be growth this year, maybe for the next 12 months, but I don't. Yeah, I don't see. I feel like if you were, buying in Perth, you probably should have bought 2 or 3 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like personally, like for me personally, like I want to obviously buy a few more properties to hold, this year as well. And for me, that probably won't be Perth. Like I've got two that I'm doing next month, that I'm keeping both of them. One in Kingsley, one in East Cannington, and I bought them both really well and below market, and they'll both be sort of long term. I'll renovate them, but they'll be long term holds. But I'm also now looking. I think there's going to be like I'm looking down southwest. I think there's going to be good opportunity still in the southwest. I mean, you can still buy pretty well in the likes of Busselton and Margaret River and stuff like that. And also, I think the property analyst that I use is pretty talks thinks that there's going to be some good growth in that to be had in that area still. So that's where I've obviously moved to live as well. So I want to do some sort of buy reno holds and maybe some short term accommodation and that sort of stuff. So that's going to be a bit of a new strategy for me. But also, I'm also really closely watching the Melbourne market. I think there might be another 12 to 24 months of pain there. But in saying that, I want to buy some properties there this year as well, because I feel like Melbourne is like maybe buying in Perth in 2018 or 19 when it was the bottom, close to the bottom, and there's going to be some strong growth over the next, 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
With you, mate. I'm with you. Um, let's talk about coaching, because you moved into the coaching space as well, haven't you? How many renos did you say you've done? 47.
How many what, sorry?
How many renovations did you say you've done?
No, 27.
27, 27.
27. I've done,
So,
I've finished 20, I've completed 27
27, right.
deals.
So obviously
Yeah.
became an expert in that time, learned a lot, put some rigid systems in place, which now you can coach other people to do. So tell us about the coaching side of things. What's going on there?
Yeah. So the coaching actually came about accidentally, and when we actually met at a mastermind middle of 23, and at that time my plan was actually to start a buyer's agency as an additional business, and it was pretty much closely after that I was sharing a lot of content just with what I was doing, and I wasn't sharing content well or sharing. I didn't know what I was doing really. My mind was okay. I'm going to become set up a buyer's agency. And then I sort of, from sharing what I was doing, I just had people reaching out to me saying, "Hey, look, would you coach me?" And there was one student in particular who I'm, pretty close with now. Her name's Tao. She's based in Melbourne. She was the first one. She's like, will you coach me?" And that's how it all started. So I took on about 5 people pretty quickly. I think I put one post up on Facebook, and I had literally, I said I'll take on 5 students. And then within one post, I had 5 students. And I quickly realized how hard it was trying to teach people who had no base. So like I was literally like teaching them on an hour session, like trying to teach them from A to B, and it was fucking exhausting. So I quickly figured, okay, look, there's obviously a demand for it, because people were still reaching out to me saying, "Look, I'm interested in coaching," but I thought, okay, what I need to do is I need to create a course, because the course will be I can record that, and then people can watch that, but they get that can be their base. And then when we have coaching sessions, we can talk about topics, but they've already got an understanding. They've already got an understanding of buying and buying off market and negotiation and feasibilities, and they've got the templates and all that online that I've provided. So and talking about the legal side of things, money partners and loan agreements and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so it just evolved. Like it's grown massively, really, really quickly. But that wasn't. It kind of just happened. Like I'm obviously now the last sort of 12 months. It's been like my number one. All my energy goes into this, and I still do my projects, but it's not. It's not my number one passion now.
How many
the
people are
the,
you
the
coaching at
courses,
the
the
minute?
program.
You got a rough
Oh,
figure?
we've got hundreds, yeah, hundreds around the country.
Very
Yeah,
well, mate. Well done. Well done.
thank you, thanks.
So from new home sales to fly out to property flipper and coach, what tips have you
Bit of a
got for
different.
anybody trying to get into the market?
Um, oh, look, I'd say like just yeah, study. Like one of the biggest learnings I've had along the way, and this is because of being in the Perth market, it's really about data. Like putting house flipping and all that aside, like just property investment. Like I think the most important thing you can do is really look at data and have a really good property analyst who can allow you to be investing in the right markets and stuff like that. I mean, I'll give a shout out. There's a property analyst that I follow really closely, John Lindemann. Like, you know, there's a lot of data that you can look at which really forecasts what's happening in different markets. And if I had known that, post GFC in Perth when I was buying my investment properties as a 24, 25-year-old, in Perth in 2009 and 2010, I wouldn't have had 10 years of friggin' no growth. Like, like those properties hurt me for a long time. So, I mean, blessing in disguise because those 10 years of pain of no growth and having negatively geared properties, they set me up to like, re-educate myself and all that sort of stuff. So that was positive. But if I had bought in fucking Sydney in 2009, I'd be,
Actually,
you could say streaks ahead of where I am now sort of thing. So I suppose, um, yeah, don't buy blindly. Don't just go and buy any old property. You need to yeah, trust some people. And I'm not saying just go and get a buyer's agent either. There's a lot of buyer's agents out there that don't do the right things by their clients and stuff like that. I suppose what I'm trying to say is just try and get as much education. You don't have to buy a property if you want to invest. You don't have to invest next week or next month. Try and get yourself as much education to start with, and then decide on what your strategy is going to be. Am I going to be a property flipper? Am I going to be a property developer? Am I going to be, am I going to do short-term rentals? Am I going to do HMOs? What's your strategy going to be? And then learn as much. And then once you're comfortable, and I don't mean learn too much where you get analysis paralysis,
yeah,
but I just mean spend a few months of research and then take action.
yeah, yeah. Mate, tell us about a renovation that didn't go to plan. Everyone loves a story that didn't
I've had
work
one.
right.
I've had one. Oh fuck! I've had two now. But actually, I just did a post yesterday. So I had a property that was due to settle yesterday. What's today? Friday.
Yeah.
It was due to settle yesterday, Thursday, and then on the Wednesday we went to the house, and the house was flooded, and I didn't even renovate this house. All I did was paint it, and the little flexi thing in the bloody bathroom, it burst, and obviously no one there,
So did the house.
flooded. So now, so I've got insurance on top of on that. So that was the worst thing. It was I didn't even renovate the house. All I did was paint it because I bought it really well, and there wasn't a lot of price disparity between renovated and unrenovated stock. So it was an easy 50K just for painting the house and fogging it sort of thing. And so anyway, long story short, that happened 2 days ago. But I'm like, okay, I've done 27 deals. That's the first one where I've had a renovation disaster. And the only deal I've ever not made money on was a deal I did in Fremantle, and that was because it was early days. I think it was about my sixth or seventh deal. But basically, I didn't have my area expert thing down pat. I've been at that stage. I was sort of renovating and flipping everywhere. I'd done a deal in Mullaloo, I'd done one in Willagee, I'd done deal in Coolbellup, I'd done a couple down in Rockingham, Kwinana, but I did this one in Fremantle, and it was on East Street, which is a pretty nice street, had a nice view of the river and stuff like that. But where I went wrong was the whole street was character homes, and this one wasn't. This one was like built in the 80s. It was 2-story, had a spiral staircase, like lovely house, did a great renovation. All the market research, even speaking to agents and stuff like that, we thought we were going to get 1.4 or something like that. And then it was May 22, all the interest rates started going up, May, June, July, August, we had those consecutive interest rates. And then I think I went to market about September. So we'd had about May, June, July, about 4 or 5 consecutive interest rates. And all of a sudden the market went dead. And I remember like at the time, I knew who my buyer was going to be. It's going to be a young professional couple who want to be in a really nice suburb, like, and walking distance to the Swan River, left bank, like all that sort of stuff. But I also knew the other part of the market was the downsizers. That's who's buying there. The downsizers, for the character homes, because they're, typically kind of smaller blocks in there, like, 400, 500. And then obviously young professionals as well. I didn't think it wasn't going to be a family home sort of thing. Anyway, because of the interest rates, all the young professionals just went missing. And then all of a sudden it was the downsizers there. And they didn't like it because it was a two-story, had a spiral staircase. It just it wasn't suitable. So yeah, so I ended up letting it go. I pretty much broke even. Like I reckon I would have maybe just lost, but it wasn't it didn't hurt me or anything like that. But I was almost about to rent it out as a short-term Airbnb and wait sort of thing. But in the end, I think I had it on the market for like 12 weeks, and then I was about to pull it off, and then literally week before Christmas, I was about to pull it off. I'd already gone and bought like furniture and shit for the Airbnb, and then someone came in, and it was like the number that I needed to pretty much break even. So I was like, fine, lesson learned. I'll get rid of it, and yeah, so that was that one.
So a lot of people in that state, right? A deal that hasn't gone right. I've spoken to people that have done a deal before and it's gone wrong, and they thought, "Fuck this, I'm getting out of it. It's not for me." What do you do from a mindset side of things to make sure that you get back into the next deal as soon as possible? Because if you stop there, it's game over. You're never going to get back into it, are you? So what do you do
Correct, yeah.
mentally to get back into it?
Yeah. Look, I mean, at the time, I was up considerably from all the other deals, right? So it was just like, it is what it is. But I suppose it is a mindset, and this is something I sort of preach to all my students as well. It's about, like just take the learnings from it. Don't take the negativity away. As long as you don't make the same mistake twice, then happy days. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but the thing is, like, every good teacher is going to tell you that mistakes aren't a bad thing. Like, hopefully they don't cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. But like it's the same with like I said, me investing in Perth from 2009, bought my first investment property, bought another one in 2010, bought another one in 2013, and there was bugger all growth. Like I think we had growth, and then up a little bit of growth from about 2013 to 15, and then it came sliding back down. Like I could have just quit investing then as well. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I saw this, what had happened on the East Coast, and I would have sold my properties at the time, but they were negatively geared, negative equity, like I was kind of trapped, right? So I needed that COVID, pickup to be able to offload what I had, and then to sort of, essentially start my investing journey again. But you just got to learn from your mistakes. You can't quit, otherwise, well, I think there's a saying, don't quote me exactly, but you know, what is it like? You know, if you think investing is hard or whatever, try not investing or whatever it is. Like, basically, if you don't invest at all, you're fucked in the long run anyway. So you're better off taking some risks now and setting yourself up for the long term.
And like pick your heart, isn't it?
Yeah,
Investing, doing flips, it's going to be hard. Property development, like I say, it's riddled with potential downside, but the upside is huge if you get it right. But on the other side,
yeah,
sitting there and doing nothing and then hurtling towards retirement with no investments and no capital, that's also hard, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think like the best part about this, don't know about you, but I think a lot of people that are sort of self-employed as well, I'm sure you'd be exactly the same. Is that like when you're doing something for you, you're building something. It's just so much different than working for somebody else. Like even when I sold homes, like I loved sales, I loved the chase, and I enjoyed the commission only. Like I had no issue with all that, you know. But like when I went FIFO for a couple of years, like what you're earning. Like there's this, like whether I sit on my ass and do nothing all day or I work, I'm getting paid the same. Like there's no like no, there's nothing to chase sort of thing. So, when you're working for yourself, you're doing your own renos, you're doing your own property deals, exciting. You're out finding, properties. You get a really good buy. It's exciting. Like it's just, yeah, I feel like, in this space, it makes me feel massively alive.
Yeah. And mate, when you learn the skill set that we've acquired over the years, right, you become employable because you'd never go back, would you? You'd never go back and be employed by somebody else because the skill set and the knowledge that you've gained now means why would you need to?
And I wouldn't listen to them either. So,
Graham, how can people find you if they want to find out more about your coaching?
yeah, jump on the website, redmane.com.au. So it's redmane.com.au. But yeah, also just join the Facebook group Flipping Houses Australia. That is, it's like I said, it's got over 40,000 people on it. I put out a lot of free content, reels and blog posts and all that sort of stuff. I share like all the stuff that I've done in my deals. A lot of the students share all their deals. The general public shares their stuff. So it's a really good community, super active. So even if you just want to sit on the sidelines for a little bit and you want to just take it in without sort of being noticed or anything like that, it's a good place to go get some info.
Beautiful, beautiful. Graham, I normally finish my podcast on this quote. I haven't used it for a while, but I think it's relevant for the journey that we've both been through. So every master was once a disaster and every winner was once a beginner. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, bud.
Thanks, mate. Legend.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.